the name similar to that.
Oh, Rachel Dratch, I think,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It reminded me of that.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, I've been a huge SNL fan for a long time. We'll get into that, but
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy that you're here today, and I'm going to do the intro now that we're live. Don't worry, my people don't watch during the moment. If you have people that you share it on your Facebook or Instagram, your people might come on at the moment and talk to us, but my people usually watch during the weeks that follow.
Okay.
So that's fine with me. I'm going to do an intro to the show, a nod to my sponsor, your introduction, and then you and I are going to talk. So hold on 1 second, Zach.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Hey, people at home, thanks for coming on and watching. I know that you like to be like a voyeur and come on after the show and peek and see what happened. And that's okay, whatever you want to do. And the nice thing about watching after the fact, you really don't have to wear clothes, not just pants. You don't have to wear nothing then. I get it. I get Zoom. Okay, fine. So I'm Linda Marcus Smith, and this is Comic Spot. It's a YouTube comedian, Linda Marcus Smith. And these interviews are really, they have one purpose. So you people, whether you're comedians or whether you're people who love comedy, can come on and get to know who people are off stage. Like, does Zach Dresch like to roller skate, or is he more of a surfer? What is it? How did he grow up? How many brothers and sisters? You can look it up on IMDb, and you can be a snooper on the internet and find out stuff, but you might not find out the right information. It happens. So this way you get to hear it right from their mouth, telling us who they are, who they've been, how life has gotten them to this point, how's things going with their comedy, what are their ultimate goals, how do they feel about global warming, how do they feel about tripping on a rock. You don't know these things till you watch this show. This is a show that can help you understand how comedians feel when they trip on a rock.
Right.
The little things. Because I've seen too many of you people go to a comedy show and you come out and you go, it was okay. You don't need to do that. You can come here and say, I like that guy. I want to go and watch his comedy. And you know what? Chances are, if you like him, you're going to love his comedy. So there you go. That's the whole thing behind this. Having said that, thank you.
Yeah.
Having said that, now let's talk about my sponsor. Believe it or not, I have had a sponsor for a couple years. I still have Will Clifton from the Veterans of Comedy as a sponsor. Now, if he ever hears what I say, he'll probably kick me to the curb because I make it funny. That's what we do, right? So here's my little light roast of the Veterans of Comedy website. Let me cough a little. I was in the military. That's right. So when you're speaking English, you now know who you can thank. Me. So I was in the Army, and the Veterans of Comedy, Will Clifton, put me in this traveling comedy group. And so it's to make people laugh around the world, mostly in the United States, but wherever they're needed, at VFW halls, VA hospitals, bars, places, maybe Madison Square Garden one day. We don't know. And anytime you're wondering, I'd like to hire a comedian on Zoom or live, I wonder if they could sling AR-15s. Can they sling jokes? And you go snooping on the Veterans of Comedy website, and you know how it is, like with the dating sites, you have to scroll past all the men to get to the pretty woman. Find me, hire me. Forget the men. I'm just kidding. He's going to kill me one of these days. Anyway, I'm on there, and a lot of really talented people with a lot more experience than me are on there. So I'm just joking. Today's guest is somebody that I really look up to in the comedy world. And when anybody comes on here with headphones, I'm like, dude, you're doing this. You're already ahead of my game. He came on with headphones. I'm like, oh no, he's going to be judgmental about me. I'm not
No.
wearing. So the guest we have today is sitting over in the other square, and his name is Zach Dresch. And I'm going to read you the introduction that he sent me. And as long as nobody else sends me a text message when I'm reading this, I won't lose my place. Okay, here we go. Zach Dresch is a comedian born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So now you know what state Sioux Falls is in. See, you're learning already. He grew up a fan of sketch and stand-up comedy, citing groups like the Kids in the Hall and comedians such as Mitch Hedberg and Dimitri Martin as huge influences. He also plays in multiple bands. I don't even play with rubber bands. One of them being the Disarmed.
Mhm.
Just released their third album, you guys, and the album is called What We Leave. In addition to stand-up comedy, he performs in an improv troupe called Improv Falls and dueling pianos group called Dual Purpose. These are great names, by the way. And in the dueling piano group, Dual Purpose, he's the drummer. He's most widely known as the flu bug on billboards and TVs all across South Dakota. Do you know how long it takes to get through South Dakota? And he's on the billboards. Oh my gosh. There's nothing to look at in South Dakota other than some rock with some people's faces and him. So,
Yep.
He just recently started co-hosting a talk show called Late Night Boomin' as well. And that's his intro. So welcome to the stage right now on Comic Spot, the one and only, I think, Zach Dresch. Yay,
Thanks, Linda.
Zach. Hi, welcome.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
Good. Well, you're in South Dakota today, or are you traveling on the road?
Oh no, I'm at home right now. I don't have any gigs this weekend, so I'm just sitting at home. I work from home as well, so just get to kind of take in everything and do a bunch of stuff at home. So it's kind of all in one place to kind of work on stuff. So yeah, just hanging out at home right now.
So you have all these you do improv, you're a
Yep.
drummer, you're a comedian, right?
Yes,
all of those. And you have a day job at home?
Yep, that one pays the bills, and everything else is extra money stuff. So it's kind of just, I'm working my way to get to make entertainment a full-time thing, but I'm not quite there yet, but I would like to at some point. So we'll see what happens.
Yes. What's your daytime kind of job? You don't have to tell us who or exactly
Sure.
what you do, but give us a hint.
Yeah, I work. I value vehicles for that have been in accidents for car insurance adjusters. So it's kind of just doing stuff like that. So that's kind of my full-time gig. So just get to work from home, and it's pretty nice because when I'm out and about, I kind of have my outgoing stuff or my external personality out there, but then I kind of need to take it all in and go back home. Like it's nice to have a job where it's kind of antisocial, so you can just kind of work on stuff, and then when I'm ready to go out and about, I'm out there talking and being social, because I used to work a social job and do social performing, so it just really took a toll on me. And so it just got to a point where I'm like, I need a sit down job just at home, and working from home after COVID, it just ended up working out that way. So
Nice. I think you're very smart to have a job very different than the arts.
thank you. Yeah, it's kind of it keeps things different, and you can't do all too much of the same thing. It's just it's a lot to bear. So it's kind of just have an introverted job and then do extroverted performing. That's what I
so
like to do. So
smart. I was a banker, and
oh sure, so you have to talk to people all the time.
and they made me a corporate trainer, and I hated the left brain stuff. And so
Yeah.
during the 5 days that I was teaching comedy, teaching skills for banking, I was making them laugh because I couldn't take it. And I know what you're talking about with very introverted and outgoing, or left brain, right brain. It's very true.
Yeah. So it's good to separate them, and and helps balance the two out for sure.
So your job is to take a vehicle that's been crashed and
Yep.
tell the insurance people what its new value is.
Yep. So I basically find a bunch of cars around the area that are around the same price range and just tell them, hey, this car is worth about $5,000. So I'd look for a car near your area around that worth, that kind of thing. So
Very good. That's a fun job. What's something interesting that's popped up when you've done that job that you can talk about without getting fired?
oh yeah. Some of the cars that get in accidents, like $100,000 vehicles, I'm just like, how do you? Oh, I would be so stressed if that happened to me. Like,
Totally. Oh my gosh. And they
yeah.
they have insurance and they have other monies to replace it. And
Yeah, we have about a dozen insurance companies we work with, and yeah, it's especially during the summertime, it's busier because of hurricane season and all the storms and tornadoes, wind storms, that kind of thing. So winter is actually a little quieter for us. During the summers when it gets pretty crazy.
so how does the act of God play into insurance these days? Because back in my day, like you couldn't cover acts of God, like
Yeah.
a hurricane or a flood, or fire. That
It probably just really depends on what your coverage is for your insurance company. It's one of those things that unfortunately that kind of stuff happens and you can't really plan for it. Just like performing at an outdoor show, you just don't know. You're not planning for a rainstorm in late September when you book a gig. You just kind of got to roll with it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you're doing a lot of things in the performing arts, but before we go into who you are today, I like to time travel. So let's both get into a DeLorean with a flux capacitor, whatever you call it, and let's go back to little Zach in your home.
Right.
How many brothers and sisters? What was your role? How supportive or what kind of oddness was there in your family? Everybody's got oddness. What was the oddness in your family growing up?
Well, I was the firstborn. My parents are also performers, so more music than comedy. They have played in bands for 30 years. They were in their early 20s when they had me, so they were still in the prime of performing all the time, especially regionally and stuff. And my dad ended up being a recording engineer. He owned his own recording studio where he'd record bands for about 20 plus years. He recently retired it just because he just wanted a normal 9 to 5. So I got to grow up around musicians and performers constantly. So I kind of early on knew that performing was in my blood and it was bound to happen. So that was kind of the oddity. While most kids were playing sports and doing all these extracurricular activities like that, I was hanging out with the bands. The studio was in our house for a long time. So I would just hang out with people twice my age or 10 years older than me, some closer, some a little closer. But yeah, it was just a unique upbringing for sure.
Kind of like Pauly Shore.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like that for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. And Ben Stiller and the Amy and Jerry and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So were your parents, did they achieve fame in music?
Well, they've kind of, it's more regional, I'd say. Actually, my dad is being inducted into the South Dakota Music Hall of Fame later this month. So, I mean, he's getting some accolades for that. But as far as national fame, no. But they've been working really hard for a long time, and so they still both have that artist inside them, and they just incorporate it all the time. So I got that from them for sure.
So he's being inducted into the South Dakota Music Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And
yep.
for his music or for his recording or
recording contributions. Yeah. For owning the studio and kind of jump starting helping record all these local acts in town and then some. But yeah, he was kind of the go-to for a long time, and now more places are opening up, but he was kind of for a while the only one that was around, because at the time Pro Tools, which is the program that everyone kind of records on for the most part, that was kind of starting to become a thing, and he was one of the kind of started to jumpstart and get that going. So yeah, he helped start a lot of local acts recording their own stuff and getting heard. So that's kind of what he's being awarded for, like a recognition kind of thing. So
we'll get back to you in a second, but did any of those people he jump started become famous?
Yeah, to an extent. The Spill Canvas is a band that's really popular in South Dakota. They have toured with like the Goo Goo Dolls and Lifehouse, so they've gotten pretty big. And a couple other metal bands kind of in the metal scene, they were pretty popular. But it's mainly the Spill Canvas was kind of the biggest one that he's worked with, and they ended up touring with pretty big bands for a while. So that's kind of the biggest acts that he's worked with, and they've kind of come back to him periodically, but at least until he retired from it, so to speak. But
nice. Okay, so let's go back to, you had a very artistically supportive growing up time, and you were the oldest. And how many brothers and sisters?
I have one brother, and he is 18, so he's about, I'm 29, so he's 11 years younger than me. So actually, when I was having a brother, it's usually you have siblings pretty close together in age, where it's like a 2 or 3 year age gap. But yeah, 11 years is a pretty big gap. By the time he was starting to form sentences, I was in high school, and so it was just like, it was just crazy or junior high and high school, that kind of thing. So it was it was a different age range, and so he's starting to kind of appreciate a lot of the stuff that I started appreciating around that time, like music and stuff too. So yeah, he's growing into his own, and he's a great designer and stuff. I think he wants to do graphic design stuff, and he's just really getting into that. So I'm really proud of him for that.
That's awesome. So how many years are there between the two of you?
11.
11. Well, that's not too bad. I mean, it's a
There's
big deal.
been bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that you probably have jokes about it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I need to think of some more. I usually talk about me on stage. I don't really talk about my family, just because I don't know how, I don't want them to be like, I'd rather you not talk about me, so I just don't even bother with it. I don't know. It's I'm very much a pop culture references kind of person on stage.
Oh, cool. Like what pop culture things do you refer to? I do that too.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of like parody stuff. Like I just did Jesse's Girl by Rick Springfield, if it was a Christian rock song. So I wish that I knew Jesus Christ instead of Jesse's Girl. Where can I find a savior like that? So I thought of stuff like that. I kind of like to Weird Al it, so to speak. Weird Al is a huge influence on me too. So
I love Weird Al. Oh my
me
gosh.
too. I got to meet him about a month and a half ago.
No way.
So yeah, it was it was a meet and greet VIP thing. I paid for it. But there was COVID restrictions, so it was masks and partitions and everything. So, but I got to talk to him for like a minute, which is like 30 seconds. So I've crossed that off my bucket list. So I'm happy that I got to do that.
That's so cool. I was interviewing a guy, and he sits down, he's his writer, one of his writers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Christopher Cowles, Cowles.
Sounds familiar. I'll have to look him up a little more after this. Yeah, that sounds really familiar. Oh no! Speaking of, actually, I've done a show or two with Will Clifton, so I know Will as well. So,
are you a veteran?
No, far from it. I could never do. I'm not good at that stuff at all. But I met him at a comedy festival last winter, so I got to do a couple shows with him. He was really a sweetheart, really nice guy. So,
yes, he is. He's a real sweetheart. He's been very supportive of me, and I really appreciate that. So, all right, so you go through school, you have a brother 11 years younger than you, and yep. After you get, when did you find out how early in your life were you before you found out you liked drumming, you had a funny bone, you could improvise? When did all of that gel into your life?
Drumming started pretty early. That was my first taste of performing. I got into drumming around 12 years old. I was playing along to all my favorite albums, like Green Day was huge for me, all that kind of stuff. So I just started playing drums, and I was listening to a lot of classic rock, all that kind of stuff. And so I started playing in a couple bands in high school, and just had fun with that.
That Green Day dude is from Portland, Oregon.
Oh, Billy Joe, or is it Mike, or is it Trey? I can't remember which one.
I don't know, but maybe I have the wrong group. Maybe I have the wrong band. I don't know. There's one, the guy that does the song about the West Hills. That's not Green Day, maybe. Maybe I have
Oh no, that's Weezer, I think. Weezer? I remember.
I don't know.
But
I shouldn't have interrupted you anyway. So that's
no, you're
karma.
fine. You're fine. But no, I grew up influenced by them, and I started playing in bands and stuff. And I've started playing in clubs at like 14. So it's just, and I didn't start performing or wanting to do comedy stuff till later in senior year, probably of high school. I was doing plays, and I was kind of being the comic relief role in plays, and I really enjoyed that. And so freshman year of college comes around, and then I started doing improv because I had a couple friends encourage me to do that. And so I started doing improv, and I really liked getting the laughs and getting people enjoying it. And a couple of years later, I decided to just do an open mic night on a whim, and I just never stopped doing it. So that's just basically how comedy came to play in my life. And it's just one of those things, like once you start and you like it, you just never stop. You tell yourself, I'm going to take a break, but you never do. Like
never. So if you had to pick which you like most between drumming, improv, and stand-up, what's your choice? If God said, if whatever your belief system is, if the higher power said to you, you can only have one passion and the rest you have to give up, what are you going to keep?
I think stand-up, because stand-up, even if I didn't have that question brought to me, stand-up will always be my constant in life, because bands and groups will come and go, but stand-up is always the constant. Like I've noticed in a lot of performers' career trajectory, they'll lose something, like a TV show that they're iconic for ends, like Seinfeld, but he'll always have stand-up. And so it's kind of like stand-up is something that will never go away. Like there's no expiration date for it unless you straight up decide to quit. That's the only thing. So yeah, bands will end because like a band member decides I'm going to go move away. And so that part of my life is over. That door is closed, or someone in your troupe leaves or something. But stand up is the one thing. It's self-reliant and it keeps your brain going. And so that's why I think I'll always have stand up be my number one.
Got it. So when you were very young, like 14, you were in bars at 14 drumming.
Yep.
And then in college, you started going to open mic and doing improv. But I think open mic started last. Is that correct?
Yep. Junior year of college. Yep.
The very first time you did stand up, take us to that moment.
Yeah, it was at a theater festival in Lincoln, Nebraska. About 200 to 300 people in the audience. I wasn't really afraid because I had been used to doing plays in front of like 800 people in the crowd, so it wasn't as big of a terrifying thing. I was nervous, no doubt, but it was not as big of a shell shock. Like people would be like, oh my gosh, 300 people. Like I'm actually more terrified to perform in front of 10 people in a small room because they're right in front of your face instead of 300 people spaced out. Like I'm not as afraid of that because you're not looking directly at a lot of their faces. And so I got up there. I mentioned this in my TED talk as well. As soon as I got up on stage, I forgot my opening joke. So I go, hold on one sec, let me grab my phone. And so I ran off stage, grabbed my phone, checked my notes because I was nervous, and then got my first joke going, and it was off to the races, and then it was fine. And so yeah, I just picked myself back up and moved on and just kept doing it. And I found that if I don't care, As far mentally, as far if I'm just enjoying myself, just be in the moment, then I do way better than if I hype myself up before a set. I hate that so much about comedy because it's like you're hyping yourself up. This is gonna be the best set I'm ever gonna do, and it's like the crowd just kind of ice cold. I hate that so much. And it's like I really worked hard on this set, but in the sets that you don't try, they're laughing hysterically. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
There's something to be said about that. That's, like, talk about that a little bit more for people that are not comics or newer comics. There
yeah.
is some nugget of truth in what you just said. So could you elaborate for other people that don't quite get it?
Yeah. So it's, I think a lot of the times doing a comedy set is all about your mindset when you're on stage. If you let go of all pressure in your brain, like all the stress and anxiety going on inside, and you just tell your jokes and have a game plan and have a good time, then you're going to be great. But if you bank so much on doing well, even before you've hit the stage, I feel like you've already sunk yourself. I think just don't go in with any expectations except that I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that's that. And whatever happens, happens. That's the way I've been learning to operate, because not every single night's the same. Because music is actually a walk in the park for me, because you're just playing your songs. You're not relying on a crowd. Unless you're like a stadium rock band, like getting them clapping and all that stuff. But if you're doing comedy, every audience is totally different. So you kind of just have to read the room a little bit and see how people react. So.
Okay, I got a question. You just tapped on another nugget of comedy. I want you to elaborate. So I've heard a lot of comedians on here talk about their way of reading a room.
Yeah.
It's very important to read a room and know what the crowd is up to, or what they want to hear, or make an assumption and just kind of go with it. What is your how do you read a room? You personally, when you walk into a room and it's 30% seniors and the rest are young people and very little talk is going on, what do you do to adjust? You were going to come in and do X. Now what are you going to do?
Basically, I keep going. I have before a set, I will put together my set list, and it helps if I kind of know what kind of audience is going to be there. So you don't, a lot of the time, if it's a comedy club, you're just going to do what you're going to do. So I basically just put my set list together. I actually structure my set list like a rock band would structure their set list. Like you open up with a couple of hits in your brain that you think are strongest, and then and with another couple that you think are your strongest, and then fill everything out in the middle. That's what I do. And so I kind of reach for the one or two jokes that I think will land the most. And if they don't react a certain way, then I kind of know what to expect from the audience. Like if my earlier dirty joke lands great, then I think I'm going to be in easy company for the rest of the show. If it's a dirtier joke, I'm like, oh, okay, there or whatever. But if the clean joke does well and the dirty joke doesn't, then I know what to expect. So it's a balancing act as far as content goes, because I've been working on cleaner sets lately, because cleaner sets equal more money a lot of the time. And so when you get booked on a lot of corporate gigs, they always say, hey, we'd appreciate you be cleaner, instead of no swearing, no questionable subject matter, and so got to go with it. And so I've learned that I'm trying to write more clean material, just because you never know what gig opportunities are going to present themselves to you. And so when I do stand up before all of our the talk show that I just started being on, I co-host it. We're filming it for TV, so it airs on television, or it's going to start airing on television.
Wow.
And so we finally got it on our local television affiliate for South Dakota. And so I got to be clean. So I'm excited for that. But I open every episode filming with stand up to get them warmed up and feeling good and loose. And so I make sure all 5 to 7 minutes of my set is cleaner. because that's what the show is going to be. So I've been learning since we've been filming that show how to write cleaner material without going to the low hanging fruit, like the dirtiest joke. So thinking twice about how I'm writing jokes has been helping a lot now too. So it's just a balancing act of, are they going to like dirty stuff? If they do, great. If they don't, you got to just kind of dance your way around it. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
So, but like, there's some comedians that have come on here, like some of the legends. And when I asked them a question about reading the room, some of the people with 30 years or more and a lot of notoriety will say or claim that they don't change their material dependent on the room. And then you got people 1 year into 20, 25 years that will adjust their material depending on audience response. So it sounds like you're able to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Because you have strong improv skills too, and you're used to not being thrown by a crowd. Some people get thrown and, it's an uphill battle, but it sounds like you can think on your feet very well.
Yep. Challenging. Yep. Changing it up with improv helps a lot too. And
can you talk about that for a minute? That's another nugget. A lot of comedians, they poo-poo improv, or improv people poo-poo stand-up. But the magic, you can speak to the magic of having both under your belt. Could you do that for a second?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think it's a shame that comedians frown upon improv, because it's like absolutely essential to do when you're doing stand-up comedy, because you can do your recited material every night, but you're never going to get the same reaction. It's not like it's a play. So like when you're doing a show, the crowd is what keeps you going. They're your vessel. They're your source to figure stuff out. And so you gotta do the improv stuff to keep people on their toes and keep them invested and enjoying themselves. So actually, honestly, I treat most of my stand-up sets like a glorified conversation with the crowd. Like I'm talking to somebody, but it just happens to be 20 or 50 or whatever amount of people are in the crowd. So that's helped me.
In your mind, you're imagining yourself just talking to them.
Yeah.
And do you also do crowd work, or just do your set, but you're doing it in a more personal improv-y kind of way?
More personal improv-y kind of way. I do some crowd work, but it's not like I'm doing a 5-minute conversation with them. Like, where are you from? Like, what's married life like? I just go like, that guy knows what I'm talking about, or something something generic like that. I'll just say something as a joke kind of thing, but then I just move on.
I like that. Like I've noticed, if you're not really versed in doing crowd work and you try to come out there and ask a question, it's like walking out in front of a Mack truck. You don't know don't like come out and just make a statement like, that guy knows what I'm talking about, like you just said, because then it's crowd work in the moment, and it always gets a laugh, and and the crowd stays with you, and then you don't have to sit and wait for them to think of an answer or phone a friend or something for an answer.
Yeah. The only time that I'll include someone in my act is if they obviously look like they're having a good time. If they're smiling a lot, then I know they're down to like converse real quick. But if they're just like kind of laughing, I'm just like, I'm not going to bother you. Like, I'm just going to do my thing because you paid good money to be here. I'm going to give you a good time. So
that's great. Tell me about your best stand-up experience, whether that was watching another comedian, meeting another comedian, or you performing in front of an audience.
Sure.
Or tell me a couple great things that happened.
Yeah. I think my best set I think I've ever performed was when I first headlined my home club a couple of years ago. I was on stage for like an hour, a little over an hour, and it felt like 5 minutes. That's when you know you've got a good set, like, because everyone was there to see me supporting. We had like 100 people there, and this was like right about when vaccines were coming out for COVID. So like South Dakota is kind of a little more lax on stuff. So people were coming out, some wearing masks and all that good stuff, which I think is great. but yeah, it was a show that everyone was on board, and everything I did in that hour just landed so well, and it felt like I was on stage for 5 minutes and I didn't want it to end. So that's a good sign.
Holy Toledo. All right. Well, tell me about something weird, hard, stupid, or scary that you've seen happen in comedy. Any of the above. There's
Sure.
always a horror story.
Yeah, well, so there's been some in the last few months. Summer is, in my opinion, really hard to get people to come to comedy shows because there's just constant outdoor activities going on. Like there's bands playing outside at this festival, and so when you advertise an indoor comedy show on a Saturday night in July, no one's gonna show up. Like why? Like so I've done shows recently where like there was just the surroundings of where I was at was just not ideal. There was a show I performed for like 4 people, and there were people throwing darts at the end of the bar, being really loud and obnoxious. It's not like they're having sex. They're just like, ah, ah. Like so I tried to like make them, and it just seemed very bitter and mean spirited. And I'm just like, and so like I felt like that was one of my worst sets, just because I let the fact that only 4 people came to the show bother me, and it just got to me. And so I kind of just had this cynical attitude on stage for like 45 minutes or whatever it was. And so I don't know, summertime, it's hard for me to do comedy. Like I'll still do it, but it's like it's hard to promote like, hey, we're inside. Like, I don't know.
Okay, so here's my final question before I get to your social media and your upcoming gigs.
Yeah.
So my final question is, I forgot the question now. I had a really good one. Don't get old. That's it.
Okay.
Why would you? Oh, I know. So you're an up and coming comedian, drummer, improv artist. So how, through your art, are you trying to make the world and people coming up behind you a better place, or a better place for others behind you?
Sure. I want people to know that despite all our differences, especially when the world is so divided these days, especially with everyone tearing each other apart on social media and everywhere, that I feel like laughter can really help things. Making each other laugh is the thing that keeps us all together. Because if you're making someone laugh, I feel like all the differences get set aside. And so that's my ultimate goal. Is I just want to make people laugh and not feel the bad feelings that they feel on a regular basis. Especially, that's kind of why I did my TED Talk. I did a TED Talk about anxiety and depression. And I have both, and I've struggled with it my whole life. And comedy has always freed me from all of that. And I wanted to do the same for others. So that's kind of why I started doing comedy, because I love being on stage and making people laugh. And so that's why I've done it. And I don't see myself ever stopping.
Yes.
Unless I lose both legs and I have to just sit down.
Yeah, well, you're a stand-up guy in many ways, not just if you had legs. So
well, thanks, Linda. I appreciate that.
I don't know where to go with that, but that's the best I could do, because I'm not much into improv, obviously.
Yeah, not everyone is, but I think it's super fun. And if you ever, I always, for anyone that is interested in improv, I'd always just suggest find some sort of open jam situation where improv people are meeting up and practicing with people, and just try it out, see what you think. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But for me, I just think it's really beneficial for stand-up.
I love improv and I love watching it, and I don't think I'm very good at it. I've gone to a couple classes, and I had my first improv was like going in the army. It was like he was a drill sergeant. He yelled and screamed and noticed everything we all did wrong. And I had legendary comedians in the class that were masters at improv, and then I'd go up. It was like the worst, scariest scenario. So I got to get back in and learn improv from a milder kind of.
Sure. Yeah. I for me, it's first thought is the best thought. Just go for whatever pops in your head. Don't second guess it. Just do it.
Cool. All All righty. Well, tell us about your social media so people watching later on can follow you, and tell us some upcoming gigs, because you never know. People have to go through South Dakota to get to New York.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few. I've got a website called zachdresch.com. My girlfriend, Becca, she designs the website. She's done a fantastic job with it. The main place, if you don't media, you can check my site out there. I've got updates on shows and stuff working on. And I've got a Facebook profile as well too, and Twitter and Instagram. I don't really do Twitter that much, but it's on there. Yeah, Instagram, all that stuff. Shows coming up. The talk show that I've been hosting, we've been filming episodes for the last few months. It airs on television in the South Dakota area tomorrow night, or September 10th, every Saturday, I should say, whenever this airs, September 10th at midnight Central Time on Dakota News Now. So we're very excited about that. And 9:30 p.m. on Fox, which is the Dakota News Now affiliate. So we're airing right after Saturday Night Live as well too. So I'm really, really excited about that in South Dakota. So I can't wait for that. As far as shows go,
Congratulations.
thank you so much.
Will you shoot me a link so I can share it if it's shareable?
Yeah, and for non-South Dakotans, all of our episodes and clips will be on YouTube under Late Night Boomin' as well too, so you can watch there.
Late night what?
Late Night Boomin', so BOOMIN.
Okay.
And then
follow that.
Perfect. And then show-wise, I've got my improv troupe, Improv Falls. We have a show at Icon Lounge in Sioux Falls, September 23rd. So that's the stuff I have in the immediate future. Oh, and September 22nd, I have a show at Great Shots with LA comic Sean Leary. I don't know if you've ever met Sean. He's a really funny guy. He's really great. So very excited to do that too. So that's the stuff on the immediate horizon, and constantly doing other stuff after that too. So
you're tearing up the place. Thank you so much for taking time to come on here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, for having me. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Well, thanks. And I'll look forward to seeing the link, and I'll go follow the YouTube. It's Late Night Boomin'.
Yep.
Gonna go do it right now.
Perfect.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks,
bye, Linda.
Thanks again. Zach Dresch, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Love you a lot.